Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Ruth. Great to see you, Ruth. The Freckle Punny is here. Jared Mack, great to have you on. Master Templar is here once again. Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you back again. We also have Colin. Great to have you on, Colin. David McGuinness, great to see you, David. Hope you're well. Make sure to check out the Two Davies YouTube channel, on All Things Scotland. We have Stefan is here. Frederick Roth is here too. Great to see you. We have also, let me see, Johnny. Great to have you on, Johnny. Chatty Rat is here. Great to see you, Chatty Rat. Hope you're fine tonight. We also have Liam. Great to see you. We also have on Daily Blase. Great to have you on. Hope you're well. Make sure to check out Daily Blase's YouTube channel. Very interesting stuff there. We also have Tay 12345. Great to see you. Who else have we got? John O'Sullivan is here. Satnav is on as well. Great to see you. Alistair Kerr, great to have you on, Alistair. Hope you're fine. We also have Killer. Thank you for moderating tonight, Killer. Good to see you. Young Ralph is on. Great to have you on, Young Ralph. Who else have we got? 91 Leeds is here. Great to see you. FY Scotland 3 Cyprus 0. Very good for Scotland. Who else have we got? We have Roseanne. Great to see you, Roseanne. Hope you're fine. Did I say hello to Stefan? We have Hattie. Great to see you. We also have Rod is here. Von Nakanizer. Great to see you once again. Enteleza. Great to see you. We also have CGM, great to see you, CGM. Hope you're fine tonight. Reagan Elite is here. Great to see you. Viking President Stu of Stewland. Great to see you once again, Stu. Hope you're fine tonight. And so many more. Hope you're all very well. Can't say hello to everyone. Apologies, but a big wave to everyone who's on the stream. So a few things. There's a football match on tonight, so I probably lose a few people before the end of the stream, but that's to be expected. But we'll talk a little bit about Brexit, talk a bit about crumbling schools, and also, well, the Indian trade deal that has been on and off since, 2022. Even when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, they were talking about an Indian trade deal. We'll get to that a little bit later. First, I want to start with the story. Ex-Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng feels let down by Liz Truss as he reveals they haven't spoken about his sacking. The former cabinet minister also described how senior politicians feel a sense of numbness and emptiness after leaving high office. Remember these two? Oh, it's just over a year now when Liz Truss took over, and then lasted 3 weeks, was it? Former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng has revealed how he feels let down. Yeah, he feels let down by Liz Truss. He let down the entire country with his mini-budget, uncosted mini-budget. By Liz Truss, as he accused her of total capitulation following her failed agenda. Mr. Kwarteng, who was sacked 38 days into Liz Truss's short-lived tenure as Prime Minister, also revealed the pair had not spoken about her decision to sack him following his mini-budget last September, which sent the pound tumbling and unleashed chaos in the markets. Ms. Truss resigned days later, becoming the shortest-serving Prime Minister in British history. She was outdone by a lettuce. Mr. Kwarteng and Ms. Truss had been long-standing allies before she sacked him, following criticism of the tax-cutting measure in the mini-budget, replacing him with the incumbent Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, who unpicked her agenda to restore faith in the markets. As well as occupying number 10 and number 11 Downing Street, Ms. Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are still thought to live in Greenwich, South London, in nearby streets. The pair struck up a friendship after entering Parliament together in 2010. It's all fun and games, but somebody is suffering. Many people are suffering the consequences of the fallout of their mini budget, and they haven't come forward and apologized. They haven't said that they were wrong. They haven't said that they've made any mistakes. They should have been booted out. They should have resigned, not just from their position as Conservative. Great to see you on the stream. they should have resigned their position, not just as Prime Minister and Chancellor. They should have resigned as MPs as well, but they don't have any sense of shame whatsoever. They left. He was fired, but she left because she was forced out. Anyway, enough of them. So moving on to Brexit, a little bit of Brexit is being undone this week. Horizon deal shows UK and EU can resolve issues, says Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak, the Brexiteer, the real Brexiteer. Liz Truss was a Remainer, and then she jumped on board the Brexit bus. Boris Johnson, famously or infamously wrote, 2 articles before the vote came in. Boris Johnson was never really a Eurosceptic, but he decided that, Brexit will be my pathway into number 10. So he jumped on board of that. He jumped on board Brexit. So these two were not real Brexiteers, you could sort of say. But Rishi Sunak was a Brexiteer from the beginning. And now it seems he's undoing probably one of the, short of the single market, this is one of the biggest steps forward in undoing Brexit. Horizon. So anyway, it goes on to say the deal to readmit the UK into the £85 billion Horizon science programme shows that the country has good enough relations with the EU to resolve a range of other issues, Rishi Sunak has said, including one on electric vehicle tariffs. Yes. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Max, you got better value from the lettuce. Yes, at least the lettuce, you knew what you got with the lettuce. Weren't a bit sure with Liz Truss. And it lasted a lot longer. So, Elvis Black, great to see you once again. Haven't seen you on the stream for a while. Hope you're well. Tories don't get tasered is on again. Great to see you. But it's interesting how it's Rishi Sunak rolling this back. But it makes sense for the UK to be part of the Horizon program. And also there about electric vehicle tariffs. Yes, this is something that is going to benefit. Well, it's not going to be. It's a cost that will not be implemented. So it will, in a sense, be a saving for the UK. And it seems that the EU on the whole is pushing back the imposition of many of these tariffs because it is still a problem. The companies haven't ramped up enough of the electric car production yet, so they believe it makes sense to not impose these tariffs straight away. The Prime Minister announced on Thursday that Britain would re-enter the scientific research programme scheme after 3 years of exclusion and months of negotiation. He hailed the deal as a sign of restored trust between the two sides after years of rancour following Brexit, and suggested that it would mark an era of cooperation on a range of issues. He's presenting this as some sort of win. The UK used to be a member of the European Union. It used to be a part of Horizon. Getting rid of something and then somehow getting it back is presented as a win. Since becoming Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak has prioritised restoring relations with Brussels, which reached a nadir when Boris Johnson threatened to unilaterally override the Northern Ireland Protocol, and he had agreed with the EU. Sunak's efforts, I never actually believed they were going to do that. They kept saying that they were going to trigger Article 16, but they were saying it every day. Yes, we're going to trigger Article 16 if we don't get our way. But that went on for so long that it obviously ran out of road. Was it the boy calling was it calling wolf, is it? Anyway, Sunak's efforts have come to fruition in recent months, first with the new deal over Northern Ireland, known as the Windsor Framework, and now with the Horizon Agreement. The deal was sealed with a call between Sunak and Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, on Wednesday night. Von der Leyen said afterwards that the agreement proved the EU and the UK were key strategic partners, while Nathalie Losseroux, the French MEP, said it showed a climate of restored trust between the two. Two major areas of disagreement remain. However, Sunak wants to sign an agreement to return migrants who cross the Channel to mainland Europe, but has so far met resistance from European leaders. The EU denied reports this week that an aid to von der Leyen was not open to the agreement at all. How is this? The European Union has its own issue. Many European countries are taking in far more asylum seekers than the UK is, and they are trying to. And it's a difficult balance because you have right-wing governments in Europe that don't want to accept asylum seekers, but the European ethos is to accept asylum seekers, but also to make sure that each country takes its fair share, to spread the burden around in a sense. And this is a complex issue. It's a delicate issue, and the last thing the European Union need is the UK saying, what about us? We take a very small amount, but we need to send more of them back. But once again, and I said so many times, these asylum seekers don't want to be in Europe, they want to be in Britain. So what's the point in taking people back who don't want to be in the European Union? In France in particular. An agreement on electric vehicle tariffs looks far closer after Germany dropped its opposition to Sunak's proposal to postpone incoming duties for 3 years, because many German car companies don't want to see these duties come in. Under the current deal between the UK and EU, cars shipped across the channel are subject to 10% levies if they contain batteries made outside of Europe. However, China still controls the world's supply of the type of lithium needed to make electric vehicle batteries, which accounts for up to 45% of the cost of the electric vehicle. As a result, Sunak has pushed the EU to agree a 3-year memorandum on the tariffs to allow European countries to wean themselves off Chinese supplies. It's going to take time, yes, and to get to the level of 45%, it basically means that you'd have to produce the battery in Europe, and we're not there yet. And Chinese manufacturing is getting cheaper all the time. The quality is increasing, and the cost is declining. So it means that they're able to produce a better vehicle at a lower price, and this is eating into the European market. There was this idea in the past that Chinese vehicles were pretty crap, but now they're at, when it comes to electric cars, you have certain electric vehicles from China competing with the likes of Tesla, that level of quality. So if you believe Tesla are high quality. Sorry, I have a notification here I need to switch off, just bear with me. Okay, that's gone. Anyway, really sticking with Brexit and EU relations, EU diplomats hope the Horizon deal could be the first of many with the UK. The dramatic thaw in relations between Britain and the EU has raised hopes that the Horizon Science deal could be the first of many breakthroughs, diplomats in Brussels have said. They claimed the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen had a closer relationship that was in stark contrast to the hostility EU officials faced from Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. One Whitehall source said the deal would never have happened under Boris Johnson. Yeah, that's true. And it seems that if it suits Rishi Sunak, he will will continue to do deals with the European Union. Now, I don't think Erasmus is going to be one of these because it doesn't really benefit Brexiteers, or doesn't benefit the Tories. But when it comes to manufacturing, yes, if it helps, if it doesn't piss off too many Brexiteers, then Sunak will sign up to it. Now, I think this is probably the last we're going to see before a Labour government. And of course, a Labour government is probably going to have a better relationship with the European Union than Rishi Sunak had. So I think we're getting to a stage where you're going to see a continuous move, step by step, small steps, baby steps towards the UK eventually rejoining the European Union. I can't say when that'll happen. Nobody can really predict that. But it's a march in that direction. I don't see it going backwards unless, some headbangers get in after the first Starmer administration. So if Starmer is kicked out at the next general election, the one after this one, and you have some, hardline crazy Tories in charge, Brexiteers in charge again, if that happens, yes, we could see the march away from better relations with the European Union, but it's more likely that they will maintain this path, if not as fast as Labour, but certainly I don't really see it going backwards, because there's no real benefit here. The number of people who still think Brexit is a good idea is shrinking by the day. Farage is furious about this. Yes, of course, because he sees it as, a march back into the European Union. Of course, it's not. It's a tiny step in that direction, but this isn't, a huge leap back into the European Union. This is cooperating on science, research and development, technology, being part of that club. It's not being a member of the European Union. It's not even a political thing. It's a scientific thing. How can you be against that? Like if the UK said we've just signed an agreement with the United States or with China on battery technology, well, most reasonable people would say that's a good thing. Sharing of information, sharing of expertise, maybe investment going in both or in either direction. How is that a bad thing? But when it comes to Europe, of course, Brexiteers like Nigel Farage and Richard Tice and others lose their mind because they hear, well, European, where Brexit was supposed to cut us off from Europe. They would be for literally cutting Britain off from Europe. They would be happy with digging a trench or building a wall. The sea isn't enough. We need to dig something deeper. Anyway, let's move on from that. So about the Indian trade deal, this is the one that Rishi Sunak wants to have with the country, with the massive economy. But it's Channel 4, of course, is a great news outlet. It's covering, behind the scenes in a sense of what's happening with the trade deal, with the potential trade deal between the UK and India. Now, this has been on and off since 2022. When Boris Johnson was talking about having a trade deal with India, didn't really count to anything. So now you have Rishi Sunak going there as part of the G20 negotiations, conference. But what's happening behind the scene is that, well, with all these very rich countries coming to India to talk about, I don't know what, to talk about everything, the real India is being hidden away. And this was covered by Channel 4 News.
India in the shadow of Modi, a booming economy and the largest population in the world. But as the nation plays host to the gathering of the G20, India is hiding away what it doesn't want the world to see. Slums are being cleared and huge nets suspended over them. Poverty swept under the rug. Tough luck for people like Varsha, now tucked away out of view.
They covered the slum because of the G20, so it isn't visible and people don't see our shanties. They want it to look like poor people don't exist. They want to hide our poverty.
They're saying foreign ministers are coming. I don't know which countries they're coming from. People like us don't have much information. They've locked us in. We can't go out.
India's Hindu nationalist leader Narendra Modi peers out from the screens hiding the slums. Perhaps a sign of his political strength right now is that even some of those deemed unfit for international eyes see it as a worthy sacrifice in service of their country.
We won't let the reputation of India be spoiled to our cost. If the government tells us that we have to stay inside these sheets, then we'll stay in.
Jesus. It's like, we don't want to see you. Okay, I'll do my duty and be hidden away because I don't want to be an embarrassment for the great leader. This would be like Boris Johnson going to, I don't know, Hartlepool and saying, we're going to keep the people of Hartlepool behind a fence so they don't embarrass me when, the US president is driving through in his motorcade. And you'd have people, Boris Johnson supporters saying, yeah, that's great. Let's keep ourselves hidden so we don't embarrass Boris. Oh, my God.
If my daughter is getting married and the boy's family comes to visit, wouldn't you clean the house? That's what the government's done with us.
My God, what an analogy. Clean the house. That's what the government is doing with us, cleaning us away.
Just a few weeks after India became the first country to land on the south pole of the moon, the world's most powerful leaders will be touching down in Delhi this weekend. And there's no mistaking just who brought them there.
Images of Prime Minister Modi are plastered across every inch of the city. Now, this publicity blitz isn't just for world leaders. It's for domestic consumption as the Prime Minister effectively kicks off his campaign for re-election next year.
And invitations to a dinner with the President of Bharat raise the prospect of an even more symbolic transformation of the country. Bharat is an ancient Sanskrit name for India, commonly used in Hindi. And Modi's Hindu nationalist supporters wanted to start replacing India, a name they say has colonial roots. A special session of Parliament later this month has been called, fueling speculation that such a change could become law very soon. At the nearby Jawaharlal Nehru University, it sparked questions about the government's priorities.
Bharat, India is like same thing. You are only going to put it on paper. That's what difference you are going to make.
If you look just there, there's a slum covered with green cloth. Because we can't eradicate poverty, we have decided to just hide it. And if after putting up the green cloth, we start calling the slum Bharat, will it really change anything there? Does it mean that when we host the next G20 summit, we won't have to fence off the slum?
Well said. It's, you know, you have G7 delegates arriving from very rich countries, and I imagine no expense will be spared to keep them happy, while people are struggling to feed themselves. People are struggling to survive in many cases, and instead of actually showing the G20 delegates this reality of India, no, just let's hide it away. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on. Sticking with India and the G20. So it says here, Sunak will touch down in Delhi this morning for the G20 gathering of the G20 wealthiest nations. But this is a big moment for Rishi Sunak personally for a number of reasons. So we have this video about that.
So we are on the plane going to Delhi with Rishi Sunak for the G20 summit. That's the summit of the world's 20 wealthiest economies. But this is a big moment for him personally because it's his first visit to India as PM, and he's obviously our first Prime Minister of Indian heritage. There was a lot of excitement about his appointment, and so we'll see how he's received. And of course he's having a crucial meeting with Prime Minister Modi, and it's hoped by Downing Street and by the Indian side this could grease the wheels for a trade deal which has been in the works for a while. It will be the biggest post-Brexit trade deal.
So the problem is that what India want from the trade deal is more migration. So they want Indian citizens to have access to visas, more visas to get to Britain. And Rishi Sunak doesn't seem to want to do that because, well, you know, migration is not something that he's supportive of. You know, they're trying to say, well, we need to reduce, not just stop the both, but reduce migration to Britain. So reduce the immigration numbers. So if he was to sign a trade deal with India, I think the main request from India would be, well, more visas for Indian citizens. So it's going to be very difficult because he'd probably in reality be happy with that, but he knows that as soon as he'd sign up to something like that, he'd be finished because the headbangers in his party would call for his head. Gary, thanks so much for that super chat. Why does India have Colonel Sanders as its Prime Minister? It's a very good point. You never see Colonel Sanders and Modi in the same at the same time. So yeah, I'll leave it to you to decide the reality there. Oh my goodness. It's going to be.
Well, the Prime Minister
a bit more on that.
Is now in India. He's just arrived in New Delhi for a whistle-stop 48-hour trip for the G20 summit. He has a bilateral with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. tomorrow, in the hope of securing a long-coveted post-Brexit trade agreement. However, it's climate change that is expected to dominate the talks. Well, our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen, is in New Delhi, travelling with the Prime Minister for this G20 summit. And Tamara, I guess first and foremost, from the Prime Minister's perspective, what is he aiming to do on this trip? Is it a big global gathering where they'll be talking about global issues, or is it more his bilateral with Narendra Modi?
Morning. Well, I think it's important for a number of reasons.
Alistair says, trade deal is for his father-in-law, Max. Yes, probably for his father-in-law. There'd be, when it comes to immigration, for example, when it comes to carrying out checks on people coming into Britain, well, one of the companies that's been offered, I believe, offered a contract is Rishi Sunak's father's company. So if numbers increase from India, well, who's going to win that contract? Probably Rishi Sunak's father-in-law. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. Gammon King Edward Lee was livid in Parliament at the prospect of a deal with India seeing more immigration. Yes, so he's one of them who would lead some sort of crusade against more immigration. Gammon King, I love that. It would piss off a lot of backbenchers, and it could potentially bring down Rishi Sunak, because immigration is one of the narratives, one of the policies, one of the areas that the Tories are pushing constantly. You know, they keep saying, we need to bring down immigration, we need to bring down immigration, we need to stop the boats, we need to reduce the numbers coming into Britain, even though there are staff shortages, and even though you have different sectors crying out for labour. But it's, and of course, when we're talking about the vast majority of people who come in, many of them are students, and they contribute to the economy. They go to schools, they go to universities, they contribute. This should be something welcomed. But instead, while many countries in Europe welcome immigrants to come and study or whatever, Tory Britain doesn't want them coming in at all.
Reasons. Rishi Sunak, who's just arrived here in Delhi, he was greeted off the plane by senior government officials, has just tweeted saying that he's at the G20 summit to help stabilise the global economy, build international relationships and support the most vulnerable. So the G20 summit itself kicks off tomorrow. But beyond that, I think there's a couple of other key aims. At the G20, there will be a lot of divisions exposed by one of the biggest economic issues overshadowing the whole thing, which is, of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the fact that the Indian hosts here and China, who are also attending the summit, don't want to condemn that invasion. So we'll see whether the G20 leaders, who normally issue a joint statement at the end of the meeting, can actually find very much to agree on. But for Rishi Sunak, there are two other important reasons. First, there's just the symbolism of a Prime Minister of Indian heritage coming for his first visit here as Prime Minister. He said to us on the plane last night that he hadn't been here in a few years, but that India is special for him, that it's near and dear to him, and that he was amused to hear that he's been referred to by commentators here as India's son-in-law, perhaps a reference to his wife's father, who's a
Indian son-in-law. Yes, his father-in-law, of course, is a multi-billionaire in India. And Rishi Sunak seems to be helping him out somewhat.
Of course, a very wealthy businessman here, but this is a special place for him, and it's clear that he thinks that the relationship that the UK should have with India is special, and key to that is securing a trade deal. Now, this has been talked about for some time. You may remember Boris Johnson said last year it would be done by Diwali, which was in October of 2022, so that date came and went. We know that they've been through 12 rounds of negotiations. There's a lot of difficult issues to resolve, and Rishi Sunak told us yesterday that it wasn't a given that they would be resolved. So he as good as told.
See, a big problem, not just about immigration, but also a big problem is that there's a lot of protectionism in India, and a lot of the districts are quite autonomous. So it's not just, you can try and sign a trade deal with the central government, but a lot of the regions where manufacturing or textiles are produced, if you want to break into those markets, it's quite difficult. You have to have people on the ground, and of course the the Tories have not been investing in diplomacy or in experts. You know, we've had enough of experts. So if you want to be able to understand the market, how to work around the problems of the protectionism within the market, you need to have people there, or you need to have experts. And the Tories don't want to invest in that. They just think they can just arrive, throw a bit of a fanfare, and then sign a trade deal. Yes, you can sort of achieve that if you're just going to give away everything. But if you want to break into that market, if you want to achieve something, then you need to put in the effort.
Told us that it won't be done on this trip, but his meeting with Prime Minister Modi, which is happening tomorrow, might be key to seeing whether a breakthrough can be made.
Is Ben Habib with Rishi? No, Ben Habib is from Pakistan.
Later in the year, because we understand that there is discussion in Downing Street about whether he can come back later in the year if there is progress made. One of the sticking points we know is visas for Indian business people and assurances for Indian students in the UK. Rishi Sunak made clear, aware of the views of the Conservative right, that the immigration system is not going to be changed. The points-based immigration system remains, but the feeling is in government that there may be some tweaks that can be made around that. So I think key visit to see whether progress can be made on a trade deal and whether the cracks between the major powers on Russia are as stark as ever.
Tomorrow, there's also, of course, focus on who's not going to be there. It was only a week or so ago that the rumour mill was suggesting the Prime Minister might have a bilateral with the Chinese president. But, of course, that won't be happening.
Yes, Xi Jinping is not coming to this summit, which is interesting in itself because he did leave China to go to the BRICS summit of emerging economies. But they are sending Li Qiang, the Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak didn't rule out having a meeting with him. There's nothing in the diary at the moment, but he did not use any confrontational language towards China when we asked him. He said he would welcome any country, including China, at this AI summit he's trying to organise. And clearly, climate change is high on the agenda here. And the world battle against climate change is having China on.
It's a bit depressing every time when they talk about climate change, because the countries, especially the G20, are not really all that interested in dealing with climate change. They'll say, it needs to be front and center. It's the biggest challenge at the moment, and it's just words. They don't actually follow that up with action. Yes, individual countries will do something, but as a whole, can you imagine if the G20 worked together to try and combat climate change? We would actually see some results, but it's just talk. Anyway, guys, we're actually about halfway through the stream, so I'll just take a short comedy moment and we'll be back in just a jiffy. Hope you enjoyed this funny clip, and we'll be back with some serious stuff in just a sec.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line and he is reflective.
I am disgusted, Anthony.
Disgusted.
Absolutely disgusted. Why have we stopped mourning the Queen? I see Gary bloody Lineker and the BBC have decided it's all right to enjoy ourselves again.
Well,
they put on excellent coverage to BBC.
They did.
You cannot fault them.
You can't fault them.
But you can fault them now because the coverage is finished.
I think that 10 days was the official mourning period.
10 days? 10 measly days, Victoria mourned Prince Albert for 40 years, and he was a genital piercing. Well, it just sums up this snowflake generation. And I see the queue smaller today, just because the cameras have gone. These so-called monarchists are worse than Man United fans.
Well, you've been queuing today.
I have. I've been doing my bit. 3 hours from Southwark towards the palace. Turned out it was for the new exhibition at the Tate Modern. But I paid my respects nonetheless. Maria Bartusova, what a sculptor.
What a sculptor, what a sculptor. How do you feel in this new post-Elizabeth era, Colin?
Just as angry as I was before, but now angry while wearing black. And you tell me this, right? Charles has had decades to think up a new national anthem, then his mum dies, and what do we get? Exactly the same song, just with slightly different lyrics. That's pure bloody laziness right there.
Will it still make you aroused, though, Colin? That was the problem before.
Yeah, but I'll be thinking of the original. Anyway, Anthony, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. God save the king.
I won't get a hard on.
Just a year ago now. But anyway, moving on. Oh, my goodness. Alistair, thank you so much for that super chat. China building two coal power stations a week. Yes. China are making progress in some ways, but taking a step back in others. But yes, it is. They should be moving in the direction of renewables and not coal-fired power stations. But unfortunately, they don't go at as I said, they take a few steps forward and also a few steps backwards. So, but they are leading on wind and solar. Anyway, let's move on. Elon Musk sparks fury as billionaire admits scoppering a Ukrainian attack on Russia. So Elon Musk has sparked a backlash as he admitted his Starlink satellite communication network was not activated near the Crimean coast, effectively thwarting a sneak attack by Ukrainian forces on Russian ships. Ukrainian officials have reacted furiously to claims of a new biography of the tech billionaire, who reportedly said the secret order meant Ukrainian submarine drones strapped with explosives lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly as they approached the Russian fleet last year. An aide to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, Mikhailo Podolyak, responded to the claims and said that the decision effectively allowed the Russian warships to fire Cambrier missiles at Ukrainian cities. Sometimes a mistake is much more than just a mistake, Mr. Podolyak wrote. But for Musk, the decision to not activate the service was a way of keeping Starlink out of the conflict and avoiding catastrophe. Mr. Musk posted on X, formerly Twitter, overnight that agreeing to Kiev's emergency request to activate Starlink at the time of the Strapazotsol would have meant that SpaceX would be explicitly conflict in a major act of war and conflict escalation. So a bit more on that from Sky News, and this is worrying because he's supposed to be a good guy, but why is he
at least one
protecting the Russians here? Musk, the worst case of male menopause ever seen. Well said, Brad.
And has died after Russia carried out a missile strike on President Zelensky's hometown in central Ukraine. More than 50 people are believed to be injured. Well, our military analyst, Sean Bell, is here with me now. Thanks very much for joining us, Sean. And of course, we know this isn't the first time that Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown has been hit by Russian strikes. What do we know about happened in these latest ones?
Yeah, it wasn't just his hometown. These attacks attacked across the whole of Ukraine. But as you say, Kryvyi Rih, some of the video footage here of the wreckage, President Zelensky's hometown, there were 10 buildings completely destroyed. One policeman lost his life. We understand at the moment there's 52 injured, but that number keeps rising. And you see by the scale of the rubble, it's quite likely that we're going to see this rise further. It wasn't just in Kryvyi Rih, though. Also overnight, the southern area of Odessa, for the fifth night out of 6 was being attacked. 16 of the drones were shot down of the 20, but inevitably some get through, and they were also scattered across the south as well. Up in Sunny, there were another 3 people injured in an attack up there, and then in Kherson, there was 3 civilian deaths and 4 injured. It's been a very deadly night of attacks across the whole of Ukraine.
And a rather interesting development that's triggered some anger in Kyiv today. Remarks from Elon Musk, owner of Tesla, owner of X, formerly Twitter and the like. What's he said and why are people upset?
This is an interesting story because a biography of Elon Musk is being released on Tuesday, and some of the excerpts have come from it. And one of the things that came out, there was suggestions that he had turned off his Starlink system and therefore thwarted a Ukrainian drone attack on the Black Sea Fleet. Now, the date of this is not entirely clear from the clip, but it does sound as if it was from last year. Now, overnight, Elon Musk has come up on social media and said that actually the system wasn't activated in that region of the world at the time, so he couldn't have turned it off. But what he does remember is not agreeing to turn it on, which is, I know it sounds nuanced, but it is slightly different because his company, SpaceX, is not a military company and they don't want to be complicit in some sort of acts of war. What's also interesting, though, is the context here, because Musk has also been apparently in regular contact with President Putin throughout the war, which obviously raises concerns. Now, it's worth noting Starlink, which we're seeing some of the satellites launched here, is a communications and internet company, operates around the world. world. It's very satellite intensive. Eventually, there'll be 42,000 of these satellites ringed around the world, but they provide internet comms, about 1.5 million subscribers. Why it's relevant for Ukraine is because they need GPS to guide their drones to their target. And for the Russian military, it's not difficult to jam those drones. If you use Starlink, it'll be a lot more difficult for those drones to be jammed, and it provides some secure comms as well.
A really interesting story coming out of Cuba, which on the face of it just sounds interesting, but actually in the wider context of the war could tell you quite a lot about Vladimir Putin's manpower needs when it comes to the army, that potentially he's sourcing mercenaries in Cuba. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, it's interesting how this extends around the world, doesn't it? Havana in Cuba, they've dismantled a people trafficking network. And part of that, Russians are trying to recruit Cubans to fight for Russia in Ukraine. And so it's clearly a mercenary activity. We're seeing some mercenary footage from the Wagner Group. And it's worth, as you say, recalling that the Russians were heavily dependent on mercenaries for the fighting. But of course, they also presented a massive threat to President Putin when Yevgeny Prigozhin marched on Moscow. But also, the mercenaries are not professionally trained, and therefore they've led to a massive war crimes, which is why President Putin's been indicted in the International Criminal Court. Now,
because if you use mercenaries, then they're not regular troops, so they can commit crimes, and you say, well, you wash your hands, because you say it's nothing to do with me, these are the mercenaries. If you want, and of course mercenaries can be thrown under a bus in the same way that regular troops can't be. Freckle Pony, thanks so much for that super chat. Elon Musk is a Bond villain you bought is the Bond villain you bought on Temu. Yes, this guy presented himself in the past as the savior of the world, and then now he's switching on or refusing to switch on systems to help Putin, and has been in contact with Putin. Why has he been in contact with Putin? When it comes to issues in the US, he's of course picking the side of the far right, defending them, allowing them to do whatever the hell they want, supporting Donald Trump on a number of occasions. So, not the good guy. I think he presented himself in the past as a good guy, but definitely not that. Anyway, guys, moving on. Remember the Bibi Stockholm? Remember that? All those weeks ago, seems like a lifetime ago. Well, it seems the strain of Legionella was actually the deadliest strain of the disease, of the virus. Of the bacteria, sorry. Deadliest Legionella strain found on board Bibi Stockholm. So this is new testing of water samples on the Bibi Stockholm have confirmed the presence of a potentially deadly strain of Legionella on board, The Guardian has learned. The presence of Legionella bacteria on the barge, which the Home Office has said can accommodate more than 500 asylum seekers, was initially detected in tests returned on the first day people boarded on the 7th of August. It was publicly confirmed by the Home Office on the 11th of August, and officials evacuated all 39 people that day. After the evacuation of the barge, the water system was flushed in the hope of eliminating the bacteria. New tests were carried out on the 15th of August, and the Home Office hoped the results would show that there was no longer Legionella on board, so the asylum seekers could return. The Home Office has yet to announce the results. However, the Freedom of Information data from Dorset Council shared with The Guardian has confirmed that the most deadly strain, Legionella pneumophilia serogroup 1, was found in the galley port wash hose outlet in tests conducted at 3:28 p.m. on the 15th of August. According to the Freedom of Information response, the result was unsatisfactory. An inspection of the barge's pipe work by Wessex Water identified Wessex Water. The water companies to do it is probably not the best. Anyway, identified problems with that required repair. The Home Office said those repairs could be carried out while people were on board. Okay. The discovery of Legionella on the Bibi Stockholm was an embarrassment for the government, as the barge was a key part of the policy to end the use of hotel accommodation for asylum seekers. The Home Office has provided assurances that all relevant health and safety checks have been carried out prior to moving people on board. But obviously not. Peter English, a retired public health consultant, said the results of the 15th of August test do not come as a surprise, and the strain of Legionella identified was the most serious type. Remedial action needs to be taken. The system needs to be hyperchlorinated, he said. That needs to be done for a long period of time. We wouldn't expect the plumbing on the barge of that sort of age the Bibi Stockholm is to be very wonderful, particularly because it's been empty for some time. And this, of course, yes, we have water, stagnant water allows this bacteria to breed. It is understood that that 2 of the 39 asylum seekers who were briefly on board have found accommodation with relatives, but the remaining 37 said that they do not want to return to the barge due to what they have said are inhumane conditions. So this is going to continue, I think, for some time, where it's going to be continually tested, and it's probably going to, they're probably going to find problems. But also the firefighters union have said that it's a death trap. It's not safe to put people on. This is irrespective of the bacterias, any bacteria found. It's just not safe for the numbers that you're expecting, and the availability of fire escapes and the inclines in some of the fire escapes. If you imagine this thing is full of smoke and you're trying to get out and you can't see the exit, or the exit is on an incline, there's a risk that people will trip and fall, and then they'll create a blockage at the exit. But the Home Office has said, no, don't worry, everything's fine. Believe in Suella Braverman. Anyway, guys, let's move on. So, as you probably heard, there's a bit of a manhunt going on for somebody who managed to escape. Whoops, we'll just get to this. So, a guy escaped from a high security prison, and he's been on the run for some time.
Bring us up to date with the latest developments.
So there's a very significant development this afternoon where we've had a sighting from a member of the public. That sighting was shortly after Daniel Khalife's escape from Wandsworth Prison, and it was at the junction of Trinity Road and Swandon Way at the Wandsworth roundabout, where a member of the public saw Daniel climbing out from under the lorry and walking towards Wandsworth town centre.
Let's just look at that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
What time was that? What exactly did that mean?
He doesn't sound very clever, does he? Why not wait until nighttime when there's nobody, nobody would see? Or wait till, the amount of foot traffic is down where people wouldn't notice. But, okay.
Member of the public say to you and see, and what detailed information can you get from that one incident that person witnessed?
Well, clearly any support from the public is really important, but this is a significant sighting for us. And so that member of the public saw Daniel climbing out from underneath the lorry. At that time, he was wearing his chef's uniform, and he was seen walking towards the town centre in Wandsworth. Clearly that will be...
Corey Tunt, I love the name. Wandsworth isn't high security, Max. So I thought he was in a high security prison because of the crimes he had committed.
Be a significant development for our investigation, but it doesn't stop us from working on lots of other leads. We've had over 100 calls from the public so far, and we're working on a number of leads, but this is a significant development for us.
It's surprising, isn't it, that someone can crawl out from underneath a lorry and then vanish, and you don't have any CCTV of it?
Well, I'm not saying I don't have any CCTV, I'm saying that's part of our ongoing investigation.
Do you have CCTV?
And of course, I'm sure you would appreciate that I can't really talk too much detail about lots of our investigative updates. But I will say this for you, we have a lot of resource focused on that witness report, but a number of other inquiries. CCTV is one of those inquiries, and we will continue to focus on that effort.
So after he crawls out from under the lorry, what do we think has happened next?
Well, the witness reports them walking down Swandon Way and going towards Wandsworth Town Centre. We'll continue now to investigate, and part of the appeal today is to members of the public who are in that area, particularly around Wandsworth train station. And
now, I was just thinking, how is this guy? So this guy has just gotten out of prison, escaped prison. He doesn't have any money, so how is he going to buy food? It's going to be very difficult for him to blend in. It's different, and it's going to be, he's going to be picked up by CCTV. There's so much CCTV. It must be, the police must already know where he is. Because it'd be so difficult to hide. Just think about it. You go into a shop or into a supermarket, into a shopping center. He said he went down to the center of the town, so he surely was picked up on some CCTV, and the police are going through it. But it's going to be. I don't know how unless he has friends on the outside who are going to help him out. I don't know how long he can last. Is he going to steal? But if he tries to steal, there's a risk that he could get caught, and then he's in trouble.
Towards Wandsworth Town Centre on that Wednesday morning is to call 999 and we will respond to any calls you make to us.
So from him leaving the confines of the prison to being spotted climbing out of underneath the van, what's the time scale there?
It's a short time scale, but it's around about a mile and a half from Wandsworth Prison, so not very long. And when we spoke yesterday, I provided details of the route that lorry took. This is one of those roads on that route, and so it's shortly after 7:30 yesterday morning.
Do you think the Met should have been notified sooner that he'd gone missing?
Well, clearly that forms part of our ongoing investigation, working really closely with the prison service here. There will be...
Brad says he's probably hiding at a number 10 drinks party. Yes. They're like, what business are you in?
Lessons to be learned here, and I'm sure they will be learned. We're an integral part of that process.
I'm sure that's the case, but it was sort of 25 minutes, half an hour. Just asking you, as an experienced police officer, should you have been notified earlier that a prisoner was missing?
Look, he's been out for what we think is around about an hour. Of course, less time, he's got less far to go, hasn't he? But he's been out for about an hour. We're going to work with the information that we've got. We've had really good support from everybody, including the media and the public, and we'll continue to respond to all calls. That's part of why I'm here today, really. We are now offering up to £20,000 reward for information that directly leads to the arrest and capture of Daniel Khalife.
The rewards often are a sense that there are very few leads. Would you accept that there's very little to go on here, other than we know when he climbed out from a van, we know he was wearing a chef's uniform, but we don't know very much after that?
No, I wouldn't accept that. I would accept that we're working on lots of leads, over 100 calls, as I say, from the public. This is just a next step in us trying to understand, and for Daniel's information, that he really needs to hand himself in. We will be closing in on him. People with a reward like this, I'm hoping it will motivate people that know anything about Daniel to call us. We'll continue to respond, though, to all calls to us, because our priority is on finding Daniel Khalife.
We know he's wearing a chef's uniform, and I think you're going to be releasing some images of what exactly that chef's uniform looked like. Is that right? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, we are, but I think I should just counsel here that, yes, he was wearing a chef's uniform when he came out of prison, but of course he's not likely to have been wearing that for very long. Some of the images we're going to release today are of other clothing from the prison that he was wearing, so we're asking the public really to look for Daniel, not so much his clothing, although for anyone that was in Wandsworth, near Wandsworth Town Centre or train station on the Wednesday morning, clearly we know for a time at least he was in his chef's uniform.
There's no sign of that uniform being dumped, you've not recovered it, anything like that?
Not at this time.
No trace of the uniform whatsoever?
I mean, I would appeal to anyone who may have found it or does find it in the future. Again, just call us on 999, we will respond accordingly. Clearly we're working with lots of partners in local authorities to understand how we might be able to recover that if it has been dumped somewhere.
There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, over the last few hours about whether he's still in the country or not. How confident are you that he is still within the country?
Well, we remain open-minded. We are still focusing our search in the London area, but we're also focusing on other areas of the UK as well. And we have excellent support from Border Force and Borders Policing around the country. I do recognise that some of...
It sounds so strange that they haven't picked him up already, you know. Anyway, Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Musk in Ukraine reminds me of Mr. Burns in the Simpsons movie, whereas Mr. Burns had two big red buttons, one to save the town and one to release the hounds. What does Musk have? So I think he's going to be probably picked up in the next 48 hours. I don't see this going on for too long because it's just getting ridiculous. This will get ridiculous very quickly. Yes. You know, it's not like he's in the middle of the countryside. He's in a town with lots of CCTV. Surely he's going to get picked up at some stage. And, you know, where is he? He's probably going to go to friends or to family to hide out. So that's probably where the police are going to go. They're going to look at a list of friends he has, try and interview some of them. and if there's 20 grand to be made, and you're a friend of somebody like this guy, then you're probably going to just say, yeah, he's hiding under my bed. Can I? But where can I claim my 20 grand? Kevin Ladd, thanks so much for that super chat. Keep it up. Thank you so much for that. Very kind of you. So, guys, I want to move on to just a quick video clip here of GB News. Yes, don't worry, I won't inflict too much of it on you, but a guy from a commentator on Navarra Media was invited on to GB News, and he was asking about why the likes of GB News and Talk TV and others spend so much time, demonizing asylum seekers, but never talking about issues that affect British people directly, such as homelessness or the cost of living.
Well, what it has got to do is because I think GB News distracts from that by constantly sort of making the subject of debate vulnerable people, so trans people, migrants, people who are, in my view, not particularly powerful. And so I think you're punched down because you talk about less...
about social mobility, where you was pointing all of the things out that you're just describing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a great segment. But I think the preponderance of segments that sort of we cover on GB News tend to be about things such as asylum seekers, trans people. And I would say I would much prefer the focus to be much more on how the rich and wealthy get away with quite a lot, because I do think that...
But the point of GB News is to help the rich and wealthy get away with a lot. That's why GB News exists. It's not to inform people. It's to protect the richest in society, to protect the wealthiest in society, to protect, how many hours did they spend on Nigel Farage's bloody bank account? It's probably thousands of hours. They spent talking, maybe even hundreds of thousands of hours. They spent talking about Nigel Farage's bloody bank account. Did they ever talk about people, for example, homeless people who can't access a bank account because they don't have a fixed abode? Did they talk about that? No. Or if they did, it was hidden, a 5-minute segment hidden somewhere in those hundreds of thousands of hours. These outlets are not designed to inform people. They're not designed to challenge the rich and the powerful. They're there to protect them.
It can be a bit of a distraction tactic.
But it's also perfectly legitimate for GB News viewers to say, hang on a minute, why are we spending billions of pounds on asylum seeking per year, £7 million on hotels per day, when we have our own homeless? So this is actually the only...
But you never bring up the issue of homelessness. Why aren't you talking about why aren't we doing something about the homeless? Why is it always when it's about asylum seekers? Like whenever asylum seekers are mentioned, then suddenly there's this concern for homelessness, or homeless people, or veterans, or I don't know, families who can't get access to accommodation, to young people who can't get on the property ladder. It's always within the concept, within the limits of asylum and immigration. How often do they start just talking about people who are struggling, why people have become homeless, what we can do to help them? Why they're never covering stories like that?
Only channel that's having those sort of conversations.
Oh, God. Anyway, no, I just wanted to rant a bit about that because it is quite upsetting. You have these right-wing media outlets who, as soon they have this fake concern for the homeless, for asylum seeker, for homeless, for the disabled or whatever, but only when it's within the conversation and the topic of asylum or immigration. Outside that, they don't give a crap. They never talk about it. Anyway,
visit here.
I wanted to show you this report here with the Irish Taoiseach, our Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar. He was interviewed a few days ago yesterday actually. He was interviewed yesterday and he made comments about a united Ireland. Sorry for the quality of the video. For some reason, this BBC Northern Ireland used potato quality video.
Varadkar's visit here last month saw him pitch the idea of Plan B if Stormont doesn't return. Now he's repitched another idea, the prospect of Irish unity.
I believe we are on the path to unification. I believe that there will be a united Ireland in my lifetime. And in that united Ireland, there is going to be a minority, roughly 1 million people who are British. And you judge the success and the quality of a country by the way it treats its minorities. If we're going to unite this country and unite the people of this country, a bit like Patrick Keelty says, we just need to have a think about how our words and how the songs we sing might be heard by other people.
So what he's talking about here is complaints from unionists in Northern Ireland over the types of songs that have recently been sang in Belfast, in West Belfast, in nationalist, pro-Irish West Belfast, at events in Dublin. So the rebel songs, a lot of them. So songs like Come Out Your Black and Tans, or old favourites of Nigel Farage like Up the Ra, stuff like this. So this for unionists is offensive, and they would like these issues addressed. Now, of course, the ironic thing is many unionists are Orange men, members of the Orange Order, and if you listen to some of the songs that are sang during marches of the Orange Order, well, you wouldn't. If you're Irish, you'd probably be offended by that. So I think if you want to move away from offensive language and offensive songs, well, it has to come from both sides.
So how have his remarks gone down with those in a theoretical minority?
No, I don't think it'll be happening this lifetime. But look, I'm not complacent either. I understand that when I'm saying that people who want to unite Ireland need a plan, I want a united kingdom. I need a plan. Unionism needs a plan.
Unionism is on the way out. Okay. It's dying because more and more people are realizing it's not working. And Dougie Beattie, Dougie Beattie, who's the leader of the Ulster Unionist Party. He's in a bit of a fix because the other unionists like the DUP are trashing Northern Ireland because they're refusing to go into the executive. So when they show that Northern Ireland doesn't work, it makes the calls for a united Ireland stronger and louder. And it's difficult for more moderate unionists because they're like saying, okay, yeah, but the DUP, we can't criticize the DUP too much because they're on our team, on the unionist team, but they are making the situation worse because the more it's demonstrated that Northern Ireland doesn't work, people will vote for an alternative. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. The the Orange Order songs exactly, Max. Yes. Songs about tags, which is derogatory towards Catholics. Songs about blood, the blood of the Irish and stuff like this. A lot, and then these are some of the more tame ones. But there are also pro-loyalist paramilitary songs being sang at some Orange Order marches. So, you have some pretty horrible stuff being sang, and the response is, well, this is just our culture. This culture must be respected. Thanks, Alistair.
And we need to lay that out, and we're not doing it right this moment in time, because that plan must involve the restoration of our devolved government.
As for the DUP, which won't yet go back into government, its MLA Edwin Poots took to social media, saying Leo Varadkar might have realised the damage done with the Northern Ireland Protocol, but he's back to damage the relationship further.
Notice he says, you would think that the Republic's Prime Minister might have realised he's not the Prime Minister. His proper title is Taoiseach. Like, I use Prime Minister because it's for people who may not know what the Taoiseach is. But it's not the Prime... Okay, anyway. But Edwin Poots knows that Leo Varadkar is not the Prime Minister, that he's the Taoiseach. But anyway.
The DUP have no credibility to talk about anybody damaging relationships, but I think they do have their heads in the sand here. It is, in many ways, their actions and their withholding of government and of devolution in the UK that is driving this conversation. Many people are being forced to think about what is next.
Unity curious or not, putting into practice Plan A, getting this place back, has yet to pay off. Jane McCormack.
And once again, the DUP are turning people off the union because they want the Northern Ireland Protocol, the Windsor Framework, torn up. But the British government and the European Union have no intention of tearing it up. We saw it earlier today how Rishi Sunak is parading the UK celebrating the UK rejoining unfortunately not Erasmus, no, but the Horizon programme. This is a Brexit victory. This is a victory for Britain. This is great news. Wonderful. Scientists are going to be able to access this massive program. And that's thanks to the Windsor Framework, which the DUP want torn up. Do people not understand the problem here? It's the vast majority of people, and we can say that, the vast majority of people, it's TSOC, Max, ask Liz Truss. The vast majority of people in England, Scotland and Wales don't want Brexit, or they want Brexit reduced. They want the impact of Brexit reduced. But the DUP in Northern Ireland want the opposite of that. They want a harder Brexit. They want a more difficult Brexit. They want Northern Ireland to have no access to the single market. They want Northern Ireland to be like the rest of the United Kingdom, which the rest of the United Kingdom don't want. It's insane. It's like a kid who has an ice cream and they're complaining about the flavour of the ice cream, and there's another kid on the other side who hasn't got an ice cream and would love to have an ice cream, but the one who has the ice cream, the DUP, is complaining about the flavour of the ice cream they have and not appreciating that they actually have one. Anyway. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so a bit of a shorter stream tonight, but I wanted to cover one final story here about benefits. And this week, it seems that the Tories are once again looking for another scapegoat, somebody to punish. It was asylum seekers, it was immigrants. Now it's back to people on benefits. We need to punish people on benefits. There aren't enough of them working. People need to be ordered into work, even if they can't do the jobs. It used to be physical difficulties that stop people from doing jobs. That those were considered valid. Then it was mental health issues. Now the Tories want to get rid of both of those. They want to just force people, be it physical difficulties and mental health issues, to be forced back into jobs or to do jobs. Why? Because targets have to be met, or it's just about punishing people. Anyway, here's a story about from The Guardian. I'm absolutely devastated, crushed, and I don't know how I'm going to get through the next couple of months. My benefits have been withdrawn with no warning. I've lost £1,165 a month in employment and support allowance, ESA. Housing benefit and council tax reduction. Why? Because I tried to be honest, and because sadists at the Department of Work and Pensions decided it would be fun to destroy somebody like me. So what happened? My employer, a lovely woman and close friend, changed the way she paid me. She went from giving me a pay packet to pay as you earn. The difference, as you probably know, is that instead of getting an envelope in my hand, the money goes straight into my bank account, into my bank. For those of us on ESA, when I receive my health, because my health is too poor for me to be able to work full time, there's a limit to how many hours I can work a week, 16 hours a week. Anything over that, I lose most of my benefits. When my friend changed the way she paid me, I had to fill in a form. I asked how many hours I worked a week, and I wrote 16 hours a week, i.e. the maximum. Only it turns out I got it wrong. 16 hours is over the limit. The actual limit is 15 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, for a functional, humane country, the DWP would look at my form and say, poor daft Liz didn't know that an extra second makes her beyond the legal limit, but obviously we're not going to remove her ESA from her like that. For that, we'll carry on as normal and write her a right to explain to her. But oh no, not in Britain, where the qualification for working in the DWP appears to be a degree in cruelty, a master's in pedantry, and a PhD in bastardology. I found out that I found out when I was in Lidl with my son, the week after my benefits were due to be paid, my card was refused. There wasn't enough money in the bank. It was humiliating. I can only imagine. You're on benefits, you arrive to buy food, in Lidl, low cost supermarket, and you go to pay with your card and it's rejected. You have a pile of shopping there. What do? You have to, there are people behind you looking. It's embarrassing. embarrassing to the staff, although the staff probably understand this happens from time to time. And then you have to end up saying, no, I can't take this stuff, or I have to leave a lot of it back because I can't afford to pay for it. Stop the bolts now, back to the call of the disabled. Thanks, Alistair. Yes. Oh, has Scotland won? Thanks so much, Alistair. Has Scotland won or scored a goal or something? Oh, we have a super chat from Verti. Thank you so much, Verti. Great to see you on the stream once again. Republic of Ireland doesn't need to be changed in any ways. Ireland, i.e., is already a democracy. It's a huge upgrade from the shit of Westminster. Yes. You would imagine, you know, and when it comes to Northern Ireland and the United Ireland, I think more and more unionists, ordinary unionists, are open to the idea, while politicians are of course closed to the idea, because it's, you know, their livelihood is at risk. While most ordinary people say, look, if it improves the situation, the DUP are, you know, making life more difficult for people in Northern Ireland, maybe we'd be better off in a United Ireland. Anyway, back to this story. Thanks so much, guys, for your support. My card was refused. There wasn't enough money in the bank. It was humiliating. The following day, I got a letter telling me that I was going to have my ESA cut off from the previous week because I had to work too many hours. You know, this thing of the Tories are like, work more hours, work more. Work will set you free, in a sense. Work will give you dignity. Work will solve all of your problems. This is what the Tories have been pushing. But then as soon as you work a bit extra, even a second over the limit, you get punished. Or rather, 1 second too much. All in all, they've stopped my ESA, which is £320 a fortnight, suspended my housing benefit of £495 a month, and cancelled my council tax reduction, which is worth about £30 a month. I'd be doing okay until this. I've been doing okay to this, just about surviving, looking after my 2 teenage children with a mix of work and benefits, and being a reasonable role model for the kids. Despite my poor health, I've always worked. Despite being ill, I still feel like I'm contributing to society, and to show my children that it's good to get off your backside rather than stick your feet up and live off the state. Then they penalise me for something like this. They don't realise the shockwaves it brings to people's lives, or they do and they don't care. Or worse of all, they do it and positively relish it. I think it's a case of targets have to be met, and this person is just over the limit. Well, let's add them to our target. This is the problem: is the DWP is not there to help people; it's there to punish people. It's there to push people off benefits and into jobs. And if people are already in jobs, then just get them off benefits. Oh, they worked an extra second, then let's cut off their benefits. It's all about getting people off benefits, either into jobs or just getting them off the benefits. Sanctioning people where possible. This is what it's all about. And I believe it's these private companies that are involved who have these targets from government. You got X number of people off benefits this month. Great, here's a bonus. Now, instead of what it should be doing is welcoming people onto benefits. This would be alien to the DWP, but you should be adding more people to the social safety net because there's a cost of living crisis. Like, if people are getting off it themselves, that's great. But very few people want to be on benefits. They would prefer to be independent. Anyway, now that they're saying I have to reapply for my benefits and they're trying to get me on universal credit, but my mix of benefits has worked pretty well for 12 years. I know what I'm entitled to and for what. If I go on universal credit, it will take 5 weeks after being accepted to get my first payment. However, I'm supposed to survive in the meantime. I've got 30 quid left in my bank account. When I tallied up all my hours after my ESA was cut off, I realized I wasn't even working 16 bloody hours. It was 15 and a half. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 5:30 on Monday. Now, I know you might think that I'm an idiot, but if I've made this mistake, there must be tens of thousands out there just like me, and the DWP has just been waiting to pounce on our ignorance, on our technical error, to break us. And I'm lucky. Other people can't tell their stories through The Guardian like I can. So it's, once again, it's the point of the DWP is to punish people, not to help them. She has to fight this. The fact that it's been raised by a newspaper, I think it will probably be corrected, because the journalists can speak to ministers, they can speak to people within the DWP. So I'm hoping that it will be rectified and she will be put back on her benefits, because it will look bad, or journalists can make it look worse for the government. So it's cheaper and it's better for the government PR-wise just to resolve this case, and then they'll think it'll go away. But of course, how many thousands, as was pointed out in the article, how many thousands of people have probably fallen into this trap? Appealing the decision, mandatory recognition, reconsideration, all BS. Now that I think of it, much of my work over the last year has been filling in benefit forms for myself. That's been my job. Shoveling DWP shit. The issue is their glee among the more strictly more fortunate. They enjoy seeing the punishment of those perceived to be below them. Yes. Yeah, it is about punching down. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. The majority of employers will not hire somebody with a chronic illness because they could be on sick for months. I faced that myself. I'm so sorry to hear that, Fearless Wolf. That's why, if somebody has a chronic illness, they want to work. They should be they should receive support from the DWP. Said, okay, these are the types of jobs that are available to somebody with this type of situation. I don't think it's impossible to find employment for somebody, but instead what you have is people who have probably no experience, no understanding, and they're like, okay, well, can you drive a forklift? Can you cycle a bike and deliver newspapers or something like this? Or can you drive a bus or something like that? This is the type of jobs that they're presenting. Or care. Can you work as a carer? Can you lift elderly people in and out of bathtubs, for example? This is the type of jobs they're pushing to people who obviously are not capable of it, but they need to reach their target for the month. Thanks, Fearless. So guys, we're almost at the end. I want to say thanks so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your support in the super chats. Greatly appreciated. It seems Scotland is doing well, either has won or is doing well. So well done to Scotland. But before we finish, we have our one for the road. I hope you will enjoy it. Remember to check out the Sunday Roast. Sunday Roast is back this Sunday morning, with two wonderful guests. We've had them before, but they're back once again. One likes to talk about politics, and the other two. Hope you enjoy it, and make sure to check it out on Sunday. But before we finish, we have our one for the road, so I hope you enjoy this.
Busy week in politics, not least for the word autoclaved. Our jargon, vocab and new terms correspondent, Jonathan Goodenough, has more. Yes, that's right. Not since coronavirus was thrust into the spotlight in early 2020 has a sciencey sounding word been used by so many people who have literally no idea what it means. So what does it mean? It means something's been steam cleaned to remove all bacteria, but most importantly, it's the first A in the acronym RAC. That's the bubbly concrete which has caused so much concern this week. Yes, and one thing's for certain, if words had agents, then autoclaveds would be asking for a pay rise. Do words have agents? No. Then why did you say that? Don't be whimsical. Sorry. Can you tell us about some other words which have suddenly become famous over the years? Well, yes, another good example would be the word prorogation, a hitherto obscure parliamentary term which went big in 2019 when Boris Johnson tried to force through his Brexit deal and Jacob Rees-Mogg lied to the late Queen. Wow. Then we have Scandinavian words like hygge, which used to be ubiquitous just a few years ago, but the usage of which in this country would now mark you out as an irredeemable prick. But not in Denmark. Or Sweden or Norway, wherever it's from. It's from Denmark. You're right, nobody can be sure. But staying in politics, words like insurrection have unexpectedly come back into vogue, whereas words like bipartisan now seem completely dead. I suppose vogue is another dead one, if you're talking about the dance move. Well, let's not get into dance moves, otherwise we'll have to talk about the Macarena and the twist and the Harlem Shake, and nobody wants that, unless you're at a wedding when all bets are off. Do you expect autoclaved to live long in the memory? Doubtful. My guess is that everybody will have forgotten about it soon until it crops up as part of an answer in an end-of-year quiz. Right. But the Labour Party will be hoping that it's done enough damage to the government already for another word to move from world news to politics. And what word's that? Landslide. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, as the UK rejoins the EU's Horizon Science programme after 2 years of wrangling, we ask, when was the last time you stormed out of a club in a huff, then were allowed back in as long as you agreed to do exactly what they told you this time?
Well said. So guys, thanks once again to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, and thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Sunday roast, and if not, I'll see you on Tuesday at the next live stream. Take care. Good night.